This is Leadership in Action, and I'm Mark Stiles, your host. Join me as we delve deep into the passions, expertise, and experiences of Boston area innovators. Sponsored by the Boston chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization, this is Leadership in Action. Hey, folks, welcome back to Leadership in Action, your Boston chapter of EO's podcast. Today's guest, a business owner who helps other organizations gather their communities to develop powerful meeting and event experiences. I'm looking forward to talking experiences. He has a variety of knowledge, including high-level message creation, media development production, decor, and environmental design. And folks, listen up. He's a new member here at EO Boston, so get to know him. He's the owner of Ember Escapes and president of Ember LLC, none other than Chris Gasbarro. Hello,
Hey there.
Chris. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Mark. That was great.
So, what is the most positive lesson you learned while running a business?
So many. One I would share, I think, having listened to some of the other podcasts and that you've done here, which I would echo many of them, is there's two ways to say everything. One that opens people listening, and the other shuts people right down. So that's something I learned early on in my journey of entrepreneurship, but also constantly reinforcing and being thoughtful and mindful when I'm talking to my team, clients, vendors, and partners, especially around feedback or having difficult conversations. That's been kind of my mantra bumper sticker.
That's really interesting. And of course, I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper on this. So,
Yeah.
when you say, is it you? Is it you? Is it the self-realization of okay, how I'm approaching this person is going to get this reaction. So I need to actually be aware of myself more than who I'm
Yeah,
approaching.
absolutely. It's situational and individual based. So a lot of tactics I use around that is just outing myself in conversation. It can be everything from there's two ways to exit in place. One way they can leave the room going, that's the best decision. This is a good thing. Or sometimes on the opposite end, angry or disgruntled. A lot of it's in the day-to-day feedback of with our team of even positive reinforcing cascading communication. And there's little things I do with my team where I say, wow, in my head, I might be reading the room wrong here, but that last phone call sounded like there was some frustration. I'd love to find out. My intent was not to put you in that place. Can we talk about that? I actually just had a customer experience last week where the call kind of went afar and they're like, no, I felt the same way. That wasn't my intent. Actually, this is where I was, I walked into the room. I was a little off kilter before we got on the call. I'm like, okay, just wanted to make sure. So I think that idea of understanding the style of the person, whether you use predictive index, Myers-Briggs, or kind of having that sense, or even working with a younger team member, right, who require a lot more feedback and finding ways to give them, 1 minute critiques, but in a way that really opens them to hearing it versus me shutting them down like, oh, I'm just getting criticized again.
So I hear a few things in there, right? So it's the vulnerability of you,
Yeah.
right? Being able to openly be vulnerable and asking for that trust and valuing that other person in where they are, whether you're doing the research and being like, okay, this is an SC, I'm a DI in the disc,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a fatiguing conversation if I don't approach this in a way, if I don't lead, I guess is the way, if I don't lead with the proper communication technique.
Yeah, and then there's also just assuming there's not bad intent. I mean, I
Right.
don't think any employee wakes up in the morning and goes, "I really want to mess up today." I
Right.
think in anything, any interaction, it's about that, and especially as maybe a leader of an organization, just modeling the behaviors you want. So, as I'm pretty much a service-based organization with lots of people, is our talent management opportunity. So, as I think about the conversations we have, we want to model a feedback-rich organization. We self-identified Ember. It's about leaning into difficult conversations, not because they're difficult, but because sometimes outside our wall that has that nomenclature of it versus feedback is a gift. I don't grow. If you're not in discomfort, you're not growing. So
Right.
I think as young leaders, future leaders, the next generation leaders, and even myself, is I have just as much learned from my partners, my vendors, my clients as they do from me. And so I think just creating an ecosystem where we can have really thoughtful conversations before I give feedback or share something. So we do a lot. I lead a design team. So my design creatives can manifest things very personal, right? Like they're
Mm,
expressing themselves. So finding ways to think about, okay, this need to change this design, but how do I do it in a way and give them the feedback that they embrace it more like an improv yes and kind of approach. So everybody's different. So definitely applying the situation and also the individual.
I love the yes ands. The but is where the
Yeah.
danger starts to roll in. Let me ask you this, and I want to hear all
Yeah.
about your company. How do you balance the creative with the business, right? So you have these people who are super creative, however, business kind of makes them nauseous and vice versa.
Yeah, it's maybe I don't balance it well. I think through the years, what I've learned is one, building a diverse creative team. So
Got
whether
it.
it's DISC or other assessments, is looking so not to have a homogeneous style one. So as we think about it, I just recently moved, having a director level, someone has the ability to manage workflow, not only the talents of strong creative, but how do I project manage things as
Mm,
well and build management working through working through others. But certainly, and I don't say in a bad way, creatives are sensitive. I think everyone's sensitive, and maybe organizationally they come across projecting more sensitivity, but I find they actually thrive amongst feedback and they want it. They just want it in
mm.
different formats and styles and in a way that is empowering. So, but I'm kind of a faux creative. I play in that world. I lead a part of my organization, and certainly, especially on the other side, where if one's left brain, the other brain is. That's where I sometimes do a little bit more of a UN peacekeeping mission to help them coexist together, or sell the dream, service the nightmare kind of approach, where I want my creatives to dream up amazing things grounded in reality to apply into the canvas of the landscape of meetings, events, which includes budgets, feasibility, right? And doing it in a ballroom in Austin, Texas, right? What's our resource management to get that idea landed?
So you nailed the answer to that is you are the glue, the balance between the two mindsets. So tell us about Ember. Like help us understand what Ember is, who
Yeah,
they
so
are.
Ember is a gathering agency. We like to say sometimes it's easier to apply, like there's great ad agencies and marketing agencies. We are only focused on getting people together. So taking the messages, the creative, and applying in the landscape of a group of people coming together in a destination. Any gathering, those are the only two things you need. You don't actually need AV. F&B is nice as a part of it, but ultimately we want to get a group of people together in a destination. Amber kind of has the outsourced management abilities, everything from finding the venue, helping with travel, agendas, content creation, speaker coaching for executives, PowerPoint buildings, everything seamlessly in between to the time they're getting on the airplane departing Orlando. And so we tend to do a lot of it in mid-sized organizations, 100 million to a billion, that usually don't have a planning function, and they value an outsourced group of people and come along to build sales meetings, customer events, launch cycle, product launches, as well as roadshows and activations. And we've kind of a really great mix of. I said we have a little bit of a foot fetish at Ember because of nature of Boston, our rich textile history. We work with a lot of footwear, shoe, apparel, and sporting
Cool.
good companies. About half our portfolio is that. And so that's launching a new product shoe at a running event or bringing it to an investor event in New York City. And then we also work with other presidents clubs. So, and I always like to say we choose the word gathering on purpose because meetings, events, parties,
Mm,
when we started the company, we want to do all of that. I always joke that parties get a bad rap, and I hope when I'm at the gates of heaven and there's a list of how many meetings I went to and how many parties I went to, I hope the list of parties is longer.
cool.
So we like to say, for thousands of years, a gathering has a purpose, and it started around a campfire, and then in the in the Renaissance, the Medici family is people aren't happy in the city. Let's throw a festival. So we look at it's a gathering, no matter what it is. So, and we can kind of do everything from the board meeting up to the 3,000 person industry conference.
That is really, really cool. And so I'm seeing a really heavy logistical operation, right? This is like supply chain stuff.
Yeah, it's so we have what's unique about Ember is we have the creative and the logistical
Mm-hmm.
expertise. So in-house, that's a nice match that we can dream or help translate. And then our producing team comes along, sources it, delivers that the economic benefit in a feasible standard that is, I like to say, it's temporary, right? It's lives for 4 days in a ballroom somewhere and then disappears.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely supply chain and the meetings events industry. We have a strong relationship network there.
That's awesome. So how did you get into this world, this space?
Yeah, so I was a forestry major in college, and about a couple years, my junior senior year, I was involved in a group that brought concerts in, and right before I took off
UPC.
the UPC. So yeah,
Yeah, I
so
know.
the University Production Concerts. So they were bankrupt when I was there
Okay.
after my freshman year. So there was an absence of concerts, and I was running the UMass Outing Club, which was the outdoors organization. And since I love music, I was like, let's throw a concert. We have good coffers, and let's solve that space. And we would bring bands in. And one of the bands I brought in, my just before I was about to graduate, they said, "Hey, you want to come on the road for the summer, be a guitar tech, boring sound engineer?" I said, "Yeah, that would be fun." And I hopped on a tour bus and didn't get off for about 3 years, spending 220 nights a year on the road touring with lots of bands who owe me money that no one would probably heard of. But definitely in the blues realm, did some work with Bo Diddley, Bare Naked Ladies, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Edwin McCain, a band called N Train. I did a lot of work with.
Oh
Which
yeah.
was kind of actually they were like an all-star band on the Vineyard. They were the house band for Carly Simon, James Taylor. It was all these guys from New York City who just wanted to have a summer gig on Thursday nights and kind of took off regionally. And when I was with them, they had a big single on what we call AAA radio. So I was part of the record label. And that's how I got to know the drummer was with Bo Diddley. So that's how I kind of framed out. And so after a couple of years of doing that, and my parents probably going, okay, how's that gig going? I went behind the drape to audiovisual production. So I started working on the Microsoft tech eds or XP product launch. I was on that on many of those shows around New England and became marketing manager of a large regional staging company. So it's big sound, lights, screens back in the aughts. And then I went to the front side of the drape, which is more the party and design side. And I helped run an agency that had like 100,000 square foot warehouse, could fabricate everything. So before Court Furniture was owned by Berkshire Hathaway, we would actually build furniture for Microsoft for their big events. And we build these big Oracle parties in New Orleans. And then finally one day, I thought I knew it all. I would open my own agency up. And it really came out of this idea. We were starting to work with Timberland a lot back when they were owned by the Schwartz family. And I got a very valuable lesson there that as a big organization, their ethos drove their meetings. So they were doing sustainability practices before anyone.
Hmm.
City Air is based out of their headquarters. And I was on a meeting that really, I think, was the inspiration for what Ember's all about. And when after Katrina happened, the CEO of the company said, let's cancel our meeting in Naples, pay the $200,000 cancellation fee. I want to be the first event in New Orleans post Katrina. I want to help them recover with our sales meeting
Cool.
revenue. And I went to that meeting, not big production, but they just gathered in such an amazing way that I said, wow, this was inspirational. I want to help more meetings, more organizations have that ability to think differently. That in most meetings, I imagine 75% have the same agenda, right? You come in Monday afternoon, you have a big general session with the CEO on stage, big lights. You spend a couple $100,000 in production. You have a big party. Everyone drinks 4 drinks. You wake up early the next morning, and then you go into windowless breakout rooms,
Hmm.
salons for the next 3 days, staring at a PowerPoint, trying to stay awake because you spent all the money in the general session. And
And
so,
you're hungover.
yeah, right. And it's like going back to college for 3 days, right? You consume a lot of food and beverage at to late hours of the night and with little sleep, and then you're expected this fire hose of information to retain. So kind of that was my approach of, wow, this is transformational. And these are the meetings we want to be a part of and help other organizations, bring to life.
So what do you say to the company who is used to that and says, "Hey, we want to do something different, but ooh, this is what we're used to doing. What do we
Yeah.
do?"
Yeah. So the first thing we do is we start blank canvas. What's your objective? And then the second question I ask is Thursday afternoon, that sales rep or your attendee is on the plane home. What are they feeling and what behavior has changed? or what's going to make them go selling more product. Then we design the meeting to that. And one thing that's maybe not unique to us is we, kind of like that first thing I said, two ways to say everything is we challenge our clients to show up differently. There are lots of great meetings out there. We are not for everyone. We're kind of the organization that if you're needing to change, your annual meeting's not working, we've had a takeover, we need to integrate companies together, and we need to think differently about bringing culture. How do we design a meeting to solve that? That's where we light up and kind of bring our toolkit to the table and work with clients to say, like, I love your CEO, not the best speaker if you want to get this message across. Let's talk about how to have an opening session that opens that audience, or how do we make them feel comfortable, or even that CEO, he's a great speaker for about 12 minutes. And then once he gets going, he feels like he has to fill 45 minutes and goes off message. Let's create a 12-minute standing general session. No seats, everyone's standing there so that he knows, or that gentleman, he or her, have to deliver that message in 12 minutes or else people are going to start to fidgety, and then we can transfer to the evening event. So we bring that layer to clients who are either maybe having difficulty getting over the hump of understanding, or kind of going back to that typical agenda that we see in lots of meetings. One of my favorite meetings I ever helped design was if everyone's familiar with Sperry, right? A couple of years ago, every college kid bought 2 Sperrys one summer, and they drove 300 more million in revenue that year, and then the trend went away. And another organization, footwear, is like, I want to make sure we get ahead of that. And this was during the running boom when everyone was doing color runs or doing a Tough Mudder, and people were buying 2 pairs of $170 running shoes, performance running shoes, and going to Orange Theory. And the president of Saucony at the time said, I just want to ask my customers one question. So we actually got the customers out by the San Juan Mountains outside Telluride, and we built actually just a pad for the top 20 running retailers, and there's 20 chairs and chair for CEO. And the session was just one question, no AV. How can we be the best manufacturer to get ahead of what's coming for us? How can we help you? And for 3 hours, the customers just said, like, hey, we know you got to work with Amazon. Can you just give us the shoes 2 weeks before you give it to Amazon? So we have a 2-week run with our top customers, and boom, there's $13 million in incremental opportunity.
Wow.
And so designing stuff like that versus the formality of I have to have 2 screens and black drape and a nice scenic and a good looking sizzle video.
Wow. So how much of your business is not recurring, repeat, like consistent, like we're doing your quarterlies, we're doing your annual, we're doing your prospecting versus these one merger type situations?
Yeah, we're very blessed. So I would say we have about a 92% customer retention. And then about 70% of the portfolio is a short and wide, right? One customer, several events. Like we do the town hall quarterly broadcasts, we do the customer event, we do the President's Club thing. So usually there's between 3 to 7 activities depending on the account. A lot of the footwear companies we're with go to market twice a year. So internally there's 2. Here's the fall winter collection. Here's the spring summer collection. And we do internal sales meetings, product launches, and then industry activations and trade shows around that. So about 70% overall recurs in either standalone annual meetings, or is usually a go-to-market strategy that has to happen once or twice a year.
Very cool. Why did you join EO?
Oh, so great. So I think I looked at EO back in 2019. And I looked at some other peer organizations. At the time, it just didn't feel right. And I didn't mine deep enough on EO. And coming out of last year, I hired a director of sales, my first sales function. And the first thing the director of sales says, you need to get out there. You need to go learn stuff if we're going to be growing, or what I'm going to help bring to this company. And I really marinated on that this past winter after the holiday. And I kind of reached out to some people. I said, anyone know any organizations? And one person said, I've heard really good things about EO. And when I really started to mine it, what came to mind is I've done the industry thing, like Meeting Professionals International, International Live Events Association, been on boards. And I really love the affinity of some of the access to leaders when I traveled in my network. But I felt like if I went back there, it was kind of like going back to high school. So I really wanted to be in a place of discomfort. And once I kind of heard about this forum thing, that's when I really was like, okay, now I'm really interested. That's what I'm looking for, is I may not need it today, but I might need it tomorrow. And there are a lot of things as we're now, this past year is our largest revenue. So I'm entering kind of new waters for myself where I need to be open to ideas and resources and some vulnerability. So I think EO was checked a lot of the boxes when I was looking to join.
So did you already go through the forum training and find a
Next
forum?
week,
Oh,
I
cool.
have next week I'm with Fort Worth chapter virtually.
It's so cool, and you're gonna love it. And I think you're already figured it out. You know, the vulnerability was the most eye-opening for me. It was like, okay, now I get it. And then you add on the shared experiences of people who get it, right? Like you can have business partners, you can have industry collaborators, you can have customers, you can have spouses, you can have friends. It's a different landscape, and only certain people get it. And to have that ability to share is it's game changing. I'm psyched for you.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to being one, the training and then the placing. And I think one of my favorite experience in my previous life industry, I just remember once I was at a board meeting for MPI, meeting professionals international, and I was sitting next to the CEO of Mandalay Bay, and I said, "Hey, can I show you my balance sheet? I want to know what stands out to you." I think I'm reading it from my uneducated. I didn't get an MBA. I have a forestry degree and toured with bands, and it was just great to be vulnerable and get in 8 minutes. He's just like, "Listen, Chris, here's what you need to look at. This is what I see right now." And so maybe it's not that, but I'm looking for that version of it in this next adventure.
And then you get the learning days, and the
Uh,
connections are amazing. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. So let me ask you this: we're on a podcast. Uh,
yeah.
what are you listening to? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you read? Like, what's your way of consuming info?
Yeah, all of the above. So
Cool.
I think there's lifestyle stuff I choose, business stuff. And I think throughout the year, my mind, depending where it's at, I kind of overconsume one or over index on, hey, love a good Joe Rogan.
Yep.
I love some of the fun stuff. Wait, don't tell me to, even this podcast I've become a fan of. So good job.
Thank you.
Um, and then, reading, it's I think it mixes. Reading something that comes in waves for me. And as my probably got my book of library books up
Oh,
there,
I see
business books. I've
one
read,
leading. I think I can
yeah,
see from here.
Sir Alex Ferguson, the best coach. He's the Bill Belichick of the Premier League.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so I have that, but I think like recently I just read, was it Legacy, which is about the All Blacks, the rugby team, the winningest
Oh
team in
yeah.
all of sports, and a little bit about the business of life and their approach that they had some down years and how they reset as an organization to kind of create their new DNA to become back that top team. And then another book I read, which is a little interesting. I have a couple peers in the industry, one of which she's a caterer in Hollywood and LA and does a lot of the big parties, but she's British by nature. And she just did a book called My Culinary Love Story that talks about her journey from a hospitality professional growing up in England all the way to coming to America and starting a catering company back when LA was just starting to come alive. And what I love about the book, and actually I keep reading it, is because each chapter she talks about a meal she had. It's a feature, and then has the recipe at the end of it.
Oh,
So I
cool.
can make my coq au vin, Pauline's coq au vin, which is really funny. And she's kind of a character and a spirit. So I'm actually able to kind of dimensionalize that.
I love the story of coming to America. It's such a story of resilience. It's always a nice story. Let me ask you about AI and blockchain. Anything in your industry that you see being able to help you?
Yeah, it's something I'm actually talking to my team a lot about as we think about, you can walk up to Alexa and say, Alexa, where should I have my 200-person event in Austin, Texas? And in 2.5 seconds, it comes back with some answers. So we are actually implementing some of that into our sourcing index. So it's obviously one data point based upon 2021, and then we can apply our lens on that. So which is good. So helping that team and to accelerate some of our stuff. And then the creative end, man, you can write a video script real quick. And again, it may not get the essence, but it gives you a foundation that gets 70% done. So we do a fair amount because we have big video screens in a lot of our general sessions and main stages. There's lots of videos we help create. And you can say, hey, Reebok's launching a new shoe. What would be an opening video you would have featuring Shaquille O'Neal? And you could have a
Uh-oh.
script pretty good. And yeah, like I said, 70% there, but
Yeah.
helping our creatives reinvent, right? Because we're sometimes stuck in our ways of this is how I've grown up on Photoshop or working with
Yes.
Adobe Suite versus the stuff going on and the AI and Photoshop and the Adobe Suite's incredible. Like I mean, that's saving hours. So we're seeing it a lot in the software tools as our software and the tools we use are bringing that in. It's pretty incredible.
So I think you heard Lewis on this
Yeah.
podcast with AI, and he said, people ought not be afraid that AI is going to take their job. Someone who knows how to use AI is going to take their job because the efficiencies that you can create. What's a good image AI product right now?
Well, like I said, the Adobe stuff, I mean, ChatGTP, I always have
Yeah.
open on my
Is that
screen.
good
And
for imaging though? I mean, it's definitely good for
yeah,
prompting.
for the scripting. But yeah, I think my team, because I don't live as much in the Photoshop and Adobe suite,
Yeah,
and we've got a couple, even I work in Final Cut. There's some new nuances coming in there, some
cool.
plugins you can get, which is great.
Cool. But your folks like the Adobe Suite. They're saying like this is what's happening right now. This is leader in the
Yeah,
industry.
we were recently working on a trade show booth for a new company, and they have a new camera device that has AI in it and can filter out and create a 3D rendering of a after a hurricane hits for
Wow.
contractors and can image it. And so they gave us an image of what they wanted, but it wasn't wide enough to fit the back of the booth. So you can kind of hit a button. What I saw, they were showing it. This is like last Friday, and it can take the image and interpret what the next 3 feet of the image would be right and left.
Whoa.
And it was a kitchen. So all of a sudden there was a fridge there in the same color palette. And I'm like, that would have taken 8 hours, a couple months ago. And it wasn't, and then they were just able to tweak and, made it actually duplicate an oven. We're like, well, no, kitchen wouldn't have two ovens, but I like where you went there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Somebody called it the artificial intern is what it
Yeah.
is. It gets you the version 1.0. But wow, is there a future ahead of us here of
Yeah.
efficiencies
And
and delegate to elevate kind of thing, putting people, not
the
wasting
other
time
element,
8 hours.
captioning. I mean, for live events, that used to
Yes.
be something you would have to either live caption with a delay, but now you can caption it not only for broadcasts, much like your Teams calls can have it in Zoom, but for other language attendees from EMEA, APAC can now attend your meetings in real time, be live captioned in AIs. That's pretty incredible and at a great price point.
Very helpful. I've learned a tremendous amount about a space that I'm not familiar with, and I'm looking forward to digging in a little deeper. But now that we've learned a little bit about your business, what about you? Like you're busy, you got things going on, you got the British, you got the soccer, you got what do you do for fun? I see a guitar. I see a guitar back
Yeah,
there. Do I see a turntable? Is that a
yeah,
turntable also?
got some vinyl going on. So
Cool.
luckily, we have a great vinyl store here in Newburyport that I sometimes wander into. And as
Love
by
it.
nature, I like to say, I went on tour supporting the band because I wasn't good enough to be on the stage. So my guitar playing style is kind of like the guitar tech before your favorite band comes out, and he's just kind of doing guitar center licks for 18 seconds. Check, check, 1, 2.
Tune
That's
it.
my
I
kind
could
of,
tune it and
yeah,
then go from there.
I can noodle, I like to say.
Love
So
it.
I always have guitars handy, but it's nice getting them off the wall. And then once the weather gets warmer, there's a rod in my hand. I'm either fly fishing up in New Hampshire or Maine, or when the stripers run by Newburyport, you'll see me for a couple of weeks out on the waterfront trying to chase after some stripers and bag something in the slot, which is nice.
Did you cook it yourself?
Absolutely. Bluefish specifically.
Bluefish.
Yeah, well, if I get lucky.
I love it. I love it. Well, folks, listen up. Here he is. This is him. This is Chris Gasbarro, a newest member to EO Boston. When you see him, say hello. And if they don't see you, Becca's going to put all your contact information
Great.
into the show notes. So let them know what that is.
Yeah, best way to get a hold of me is I'm most responsive in email, Chris at emberbrandfire.com, because Ember, the mug owned ember.com. And then big on social if you want to see what we're doing at Ember Brand Fire. And then also we have the event venue side of the business, which is our new startup, which is Ember Escapes. You can find that on the web, emberescapes.com.
So the social handle is Ember Brands. Is that what you said?
Brand Fire.
Brand Fire.
BRAND. Yeah.
Ember Brand Fire. Check them out.
Rolls right off the tongue.
It is. But once you hit this, once you smash the button, that's all you need. And folks, we'll have them in the show notes to link right through. Thanks to Becca and our friends at Ringmaster Marketing helping us with the production of this. We thank you very much. Chris, it's a pleasure to meet you. I love learning with you and hearing all of your wonderful stories. Thank you for joining us on the show. And I hope we introduced you to the local chapter the way you would want to be introduced.
And Mark, I've been asking EO members as I meet them, what's your one piece of advice for me in my journey that I'm starting here at EO?
Vulnerability.
All right, good.
Yeah. Folks, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, if it moved you, if you thought of somebody, share it with them. You know what? Share it with everyone. Great guy here. Why not? Thanks again, folks. Thank you, Chris.
Cheers.
Folks, this has been another exciting episode of Leadership in Action, your Boston chapter of EO's podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Speak with you soon. Leadership in Action is sponsored by the Boston chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. As the world's only peer-to-peer network exclusively for entrepreneurs, EO helps transform the lives of those who transform the world.